Coming up on Midco Motorsports, one of the region's most historic racetracks has gone quiet. We'll discuss the latest developments in the saga surrounding Badlands Motor Speedway. Big paydays always bring out the best. We'll have highlights and reaction from the high-stakes races in Jackson and Huron. Plus, meet the man that owns one of the most recognizable voices in regional racing. The green flag drops now. The summer silence in Brandon is rather deafening. How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson, and this is Midco Motorsports. Much of the racing talk this offseason centered around one place, and that was Badlands Motor Speedway. It's been a bit of a roller coaster since the end of last season, and it all started on December 1st when Chuck Brennan announced that the track was up for sale with an asking price of around $9.75 million. It was also announced at that time that there would be no racing in 2017. On February 7th of this year, the track unveiled a condensed 6-race schedule for this year. Then about a month later came word of a full slate in 2018, regardless of whether or not the track was sold. Good news, right? Well, that's where things started to go the other direction. On May 16th, just 3 days after this year's season opening Silver Shootout, BMS announced that it was parting ways with the MedStar Dirt Track Rescue Team, which is widely considered to be one of the best in the business. That didn't sit well with a lot of folks, and on May 18th, after what the track called an onslaught of negativity, racing was officially suspended until a new ownership group can be found. At that time, the asking price was lowered to $7.5 million. All right, for more on this ongoing saga now, we bring in our longtime Midco SN racing analyst, Rod Pattinson. Rod, as you well know, there are not a lot of racetracks in this part of the country that have the history and tradition of this one. So with that in mind, what kind of impact do you think a season without racing in Brandon could potentially have on the sport in this area?
Well, it's a trickle-down effect because there are so many drivers and so many fans and so many sponsors. A lot of people plan their summer weekends around racing at Houston Speedway on a Sunday night. They would go camping or to the lake. They'd get back home on Sunday afternoon, head out to the races. It's a perfect way to end their weekend. It's a sad situation to see such a tradition and such a great sport at a great venue go dark like it is.
And let's be honest, you can call it Badlands all you want, but to many, many, many people out there, it has been, always will be, Houston Speedway.
No kidding. Especially with a person like me being the chairperson of the Houston Speedway Hall of Fame, it goes a lot deeper for a guy like me and guys that are in the Hall of Fame already and will be inducted into the Hall of Fame later this summer.
Okay, well, who stands to lose the most out of this whole situation?
Everybody. And I mean everybody, just like the people we talked about, the fans, the drivers, the sponsors, the officials who were working out there, the concession people that were working out there, there's jobs involved. I knew from the beginning, when I saw Chuck Brennan's name on this deal, it was going to be and is a train wreck. Absolutely, when he came on during his press conference and said, if I hear the words Knoxville one more time, I'm going to vomit, he automatically irritated 99.9% of the racing family. Then when he talked about how he couldn't understand how people could go clear to Knoxville and not race in their own backyard, he didn't know there was a Knoxville, Iowa. He thought people were going to Knoxville, Tennessee. That's a true story. So if a guy who says he's a racing fan says that it's Knoxville, Tennessee, not Knoxville, Iowa, and he's going to be the savior of racing around this area, no, you're not going to convince me at all that he's in it for anything more than the money.
All right, well, the good news is, for people like you anyway, the search for new ownership is ongoing, but let's be honest, the list of potential buyers here is going to be pretty limited at the asking price. $7.5 million as it stands now is an awful lot of money. Not a lot of people out there with that kind of cash, especially ones that also might be interested in buying a racetrack, right? So what do you think has to happen for Chuck Brennan to unload this thing?
Number one, you need to get out of Brandon land because there's no way that anybody with any kind of business sense at all is going to pay you $7.5 million for that facility. Think about this for a minute. You've got a facility that you can only use 4 months out of the year, weather permitting, 1 to 2 nights a day. If you clear $250,000 a year, it would take you 30 years to pay it off. with no interest. Who's going to do that? Anybody that comes in is going to invest in the sport and not in the business. Anybody with any business sense at all won't touch this. I hate to say it, but it just doesn't make sense.
All right, well, finally now that it appears to all be over, Chuck Brennan's affiliation with racing, I think I know which way you're heading, but how are you going to remember this brief time period?
Well, all I can tell you, Jay, is if I told you, the FCC may not like it, and I just assume what I don't say won't hurt me. All I can tell you, it's not good.
All right, well, fair enough. It is going to be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. Hopefully racing, of course, will return to Brandon sooner rather than later, but I guess time will have to tell.
And there have been some rumors. I know how rumors go, but supposedly within the last couple of weeks, there has been a group from the Florida area that has been at the racetrack to look at it and possibly make an offer on it. Stay tuned.
All right. Yes, exactly. Stay tuned on that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time as always. Well, many of the biggest names in sprint car racing were chasing a big payday in Jackson last week. Highlights and reaction from the 39th Jackson Nationals coming up next. Aside from the Knoxville Nationals, very few events in our region can boast the history or the attraction of the Jackson Nationals. If you need proof, just take a look at the list of past winners, which includes guys like Steve Kinzer, Doug Wolfgang, and Bobby Allen. Saturday, a new batch of champions would be entered into the record book on the final night of the 39th AGCO Jackson Nationals. It's this week's Midco Motorsports A Feature. The grandstand loaded up for this one, but the cheers turned to fears in the early part of the night's 360 feature. Lap 3, Friday's winner, Thomas Kennedy, running third when he wobbles, then goes airborne in turn 2. Just a nasty wreck. Kennedy suffered a severe concussion and was taken to a local hospital for observation. When the race resumed, it was a one-man show. Jack Dover took control off the restart, and he stayed out front the rest of the way. Dover picks up his second win in 3 nights at Jackson.
We haven't been here for 4 years, so to come back and do as good as we did, it's awesome. And maybe this thing will be as big as Knoxville Nationals one day, and my name will be on the list of winners.
There'd be a little more drama in the 305 class. Harrisburg, South Dakota's Dusty Ballinger jumped to the front from the pole, and he would keep the 2D in that spot for the first 12 circuits. But his luck runs out with just a few laps to go. Fuel pump failure forced Ballinger to give way to Brady Forbrook, and the youngster makes the most of the opportunity. His first ever win at Jackson Motorplex comes on the same day that his father, Guy Forbrook, was inducted into the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. That brings us to the real fireworks, the 30-lap, $25,000 to win main event for the 410 Outlaw Sprints. Kerry Madsen looking to complete an already impressive weekend. He dominated early, but things got much more interesting once he hit lap traffic. Brad Sweet takes a run at him here, but Madsen able to hold him off. A couple laps later, here comes Donnie Schatz. Madsen again manages to keep the lead. Schatz would finish 5th. Later, though, persistence pays off for Sweet. He pilots the 49 past the 2M on the inside, and that was it. Sweet leads the final 13 laps en route to his 3rd win of the season. Madsen was 2nd, with David Gravel rounding out the podium.
Anytime you win, it's momentum, and this sport's a lot about momentum and confidence. So, we got a lot of confidence right now. Our cars are really fast, and these are the months that you really want to get going, and these are the type of races you want to win when there's big money on the line.
And for more on the Jackson Nationals, we bring in our own Midco SN racing analyst, Brian Shaw. Brian, let's start with Brad Sweet. What could a win like this at an event of this caliber do for his season?
Well, I think it's a really big win for Brad Sweet, and it's not like he hasn't been good this season. He's been very, very consistent when you look at it. 28 top 10s, 22 top 5s, so he's been very fast and very good wherever he's been. He just has not had the wins that he had at this point last year. It's his first win since April 15th, his 3rd of the season, so that's a really big win for Brad. And, $25,000 doesn't hurt when you win the Jackson Nationals either. So maybe some momentum as you get into the month of money, and then next weekend heading to Knoxville for a pair of shows before coming to North Dakota to race in Grand Forks and Fargo, where Donnie Schatz has been very good here the last several years.
By all accounts, the 39th Jackson Nationals, Brian, was a smashing success. So what are your thoughts on the future of this event? How big can it get?
Well, I think it can get a lot bigger. I think moving into early June, I love the fact that they did that from late August, early September. I think that's the point in the year where, you know, it's the fall, people are turning their attention to other things. And I talked to Jackson Motorplex General Manager Doug Johnson about that, and he said that was our whole thought process is when you get to that point in the year, people are either broke, burnt out, or both when it comes to racing. So this is a way to give themselves their own little niche and really spread out the big races a little bit. So, you know, that's been big, I think, for Jackson to get that. You know, with the Kings Royal in July, Knoxville Nationals in August, you got really 3 big shows, one in each month. He did say that they need to move the shows along a lot quicker than what they did this last year, just because track prep took so long. You had 100 sprint cars. It takes a long time to run all those shows. So I think that's something that they want to improve on and something they can certainly smooth out in the future. Also, look for a possibility of moving the Jackson Nationals a weekend later next season. They're going to talk with the World of Outlaws and Knoxville Raceway to see if they can run it in the second weekend of June to try to get more folks out for that event, as Minnesota was still in school until later in the week as the Jackson Nationals started. So something that they may work out down the future, but certainly a very positive start moving to the new date in early June.
Yeah, it's already a top-notch event. Certainly has that big-time feel, so exciting to think about what the future may hold. Thanks, Brian. Well, there was another big check handed out in Huron on Saturday. Find out who got to take that one home when Midco Motorsports rolls on. The most lucrative week of the season for the Wissota Late Model Challenge Series takes place in eastern South Dakota. Over $19,000 was up for grabs over a 4-day stretch, which included stops in Huron, Aberdeen, and Watertown. And that was just the first place money. More than 50% of that was handed out Saturday during the 17th Annual Challenge Cup at Dakota State Fair Speedway. $10,000 to the winner of the 40-lap late model feature. Pick things up at the halfway point. Don Shaw's 42 car showing the way, but he takes his foot off the gas in lap traffic, and that allows the legendary Kent Arment to swing around him for the lead. Shaw charges right back, though. The 42 regained the top spot about a half a lap later, and this time, Shaw wouldn't let it go. He pulls away to claim his second consecutive win in Huron.
That's actually crazy. I mean, I come out here just to hope finish top 3 each night, and, you know, we won the first night, and then we won again tonight. It was, I mean, that's a huge bonus. So, and the track was blistering fast, but yet it slicked off and it was real racy halfway through the race. So hats off to Orville and everybody here that took care of the track. I guess it all turned out good. Anytime you win, it's a good track.
The payouts weren't quite as significant in North Dakota over the weekend, but that didn't exactly slow things down. We'll make pit stops in Grand Forks and Fargo after this. Parity has been rampant over the first month of the season at River Cities, with 15 different drivers claiming victory across the track's 4 weekly classes. One of those previous winners was Street Stock's points leader Ryan Johnson. He started 9th for Friday's feature, but the 25 wouldn't finish there. Pick it up on lap 8. The 1M of Nicholas Minsky gets around pole setter James Meager for the top spot. But his lead would be short-lived. 2 laps later, here comes Johnson. He moves by Minsky on turn 2, and he goes on for his second win of the year in Grand Forks. More new blood in the Midwest Modifieds. Jamie Dietzler, who had never even won a qualifying heat race, holds off a late push from Lance Schill to pick up his first ever win at the Bull Ring in wire-to-wire fashion. The always competitive late model saw Hall of Famer Tom Corcoran up front in the early going, but he'd quickly be replaced by a guy that could very well be a Hall of Famer himself one day. Dustin Strand scoots past Corcoran for the lead on lap 2. Then on lap 14, Strand finds himself in a fight with Mike Balkin. The 71, though, doesn't back down. Strand, the 2-time defending points champ, cruises to his second win of 2017.
It was really awesome. My crew works their tail off, and it helps to start towards the front. We hardly ever get to do it because they do the point average deal, but we had some not so stellar runs at the beginning of the season, so we'll take it.
The NOSA Sprint feature rounded out the night. Pick it up on lap 3. Pole setter Bob Martin sees his lead evaporate at the hands of Chris Ranton. Things got a little crazy on lap 7. Tom Eglin with some major axle issues, although his tire not quite ready to quit. Casey Mack briefly grabbed the lead on a lap 10 restart, but after the yellow came back out just 2 laps later, Mack chose the outside and Ranton made him pay. Ranton retakes the lead and goes on to collect his 2nd career sprint car victory and his 1st at River Cities.
Tell you what, my emotions are going crazy because we race a lot, or we've raced for a lot of years, and to finally put one together for the team means the world to us because there's so much work. People don't understand the amount of work that goes into these cars to keep them going around the track.
Let's move south to West Fargo and Red River Valley now. Jesse Skoleski's 3X has owned the Sport Mod class this season, but Luke Johnson bests him this time. The 8J came all the way from 15th to get the win.
There's just a little tack strip on the bottom, and I just come in real nice and slow and hit that and just go all the way through. And I know it kind of looked like it was drying up on top, so if I can get that restart that I needed, I think I can take it.
Wild night for the Legends class. The 5D8 of Dylan Johnson out in front here, but he loses control heading into turn 1. Deja vu on the restart. This time it's the 14T of Tim Estenson. That caution would end his night. All of that opened the door for Kindred Sean Johnson. He drives the 58 car to its first win of the year at Red River Valley.
I took a little help in the pits. A good friend of mine, God, he knows who I'm talking about. He gave me a little advice, told me what to do, and I went out and did my thing, I guess.
Finally, we go to the IMCA Modifieds. What a start to the season for Austin Arneson. The only lead change of the night comes courtesy of the 10 car right here. He moves around Rob Van Mill on the outside and goes on to collect already his 4th victory in West Fargo.
I was searching around the track. I was changing my lane up, changing how I'd enter, riding brakes and stuff like that. There's a lot more going on in the cockpit than most people give credit for. So, but yeah, it was a great track tonight, and everything was great tonight.
Well, if you've ever been to the races in western Minnesota, you've probably heard his voice. Tonight, you're going to see the face that goes with it. The story of Ron Krogh is coming up next. And welcome back. Well, he's the voice of racing at several tracks across the state of Minnesota. And at 67 years old, Ron Krogh has no plans of getting out of the fast lane. Midco Motorsports reporter Greg Enkers introduces us to the man behind the microphone.
Folks, you want hot rods, we got them here tonight. We got 45 USMTS Modifieds.
If you've ever attended a race in west central Minnesota, chances are you recognize this voice.
And I'll tell you, Ryan Palmer, folks, has had a great season as he's up top, and now he has caught Tamman on the outside off the top of turn 4, and Satter hangs on for the 2nd lap.
The man behind the mic is Ron Krogh, and he's been the voice of stock car racing for more than 30 years.
I raced for 9 years. I started out at West Central and raced a sportsman car. I had a little luck there. I went to Fargo and got spanked a few times up there, but I had a lot of fun, got to meet some great people. And in 1985, financially, I knew I couldn't race much longer, so I said, they asked they need an announcer at Fergus. So what I was doing, I was announcing at Fergus, and I was racing at Alec. So I raced Saturday nights at Alec, and I announced at Fergus Sundays. And I got into it, and I was only going to announce for a year or two because I thought, I'll make enough money, I can go back racing again. Well, neither one of them made that much money, but I ended up staying with the announcing.
That unfortunate reality over finances kept Ron in the PA booth. But over the course of time, even he could not picture his role at the racetrack any other way.
It was good way for me to start because of the fact I was right out of the cars, so I kind of knew what was going on the track with the race, which was really good. I think I'd recommend that for any young announcer to get started.
But your leader, again, hanging tough at the halfway point, is going to be the 67 out there of Ryan Satter.
As a lifelong race fan myself, I was introduced to Ron Krogh at a very young age when I started attending stock car races back in the early 90s. And while it's been more than 25 years since then, drivers and fans alike still appreciate what Ron brings to the track every race night.
Since I was a little kid, when you show up at the races in the spring, the smell of popcorn and his voice, you knew you were at the races.
You'll recognize that voice anywhere. He's just a permanent fixture, friends with everybody out here, has time to stop and say hi.
Racing's an exciting sport. It's not like being at the library on Saturday nights. I mean, when these guys get out there, we make a lot of noise, they throw a lot of mud, and it's crazy. So you got to have that energy with them, And if you do that, you'll have some fun with it.
They're bumper to bumper in a freight train, and Tandesky's charging. Now, John, there goes Vogel on the inside. He slides out, oh, look out, a little bit of contact, and they get sideways, and oh, man, a tough break. Johnson also spins out.
It's fun that has nearly evolved into a full-time job for Ron. For the better part of the past 2 decades, he's been calling races 4 nights a week across Minnesota. But life waved the caution flag this past offseason.
I had a heart attack on January 9th. So they had to put some stents in me, and they fixed me up there. But the doctors at that time had told me, they said, you know, you really, you know, at your age, you got to slow down a little bit here. You know, 'cause I was doing a bunch of other stuff too. So I talked to my wife, and I said, you know, I've been going for 27 years, and I said, I probably should cut back one.
Cutting back means Ron is only at 3 tracks per week now, and he doesn't see a final lap in his near future.
Maybe in about 15 years, I'd love to get back and, right now I see how this goes. As long as my health is good, and I got to kind of pace it a little bit. There could be, it could be a time where I might have to go to a couple nights a week. We'll see what happens. But right now, I'm going to shoot for 3 for the time being.
A welcomed sight, or should I say sound, for race fans across the upper Midwest.
Well, folks, start the party in Den tonight, because here he comes off turn 4. Ryan Satter going to get the win.
That again was Greg Ankers reporting. Krogh, who's called the races at more than a dozen tracks in his career, recently became a Hall of Famer at one of them, that being Viking Speedway in Alexandria, Minnesota. Well, that is our time for this week. For Greg Ankers, Brian Shawn, and the rest of our Midco Motorsports crew, I'm Jay Elson. We'll send you out now with a quick look at this week's calendar. Enjoy the races, everyone. We'll see you next time.